Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pittsburgh Law Enforcement Center for tonight's candidate forum focusing on the race for Crawford County Commission District 3. My name is Blake Benson with the Pittsburgh Area Chamber of Commerce. I have the pleasure of serving as the moderator for tonight's event, joined tonight by Jonathan Riley, who's the editor of the Morning Sun. So, John, thank you for joining us, and thank you for the Morning Sun's support of this event. Thank you to the City of Pittsburgh for allowing us to host this in the courtroom here in Pittsburgh so that our folks at home can watch, and thank you to Ryan in the back for his work in making sure that this is televised, and really appreciate the City of Pittsburgh's support. Also, a big thanks to our two candidates who took time to join us tonight, Jeremy Johnson and Carl Wood. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Before we get started tonight, just some housekeeping notes for our audience members to know. First of all, both of our candidates will be allowed 2 minutes for an opening statement. We drew numbers at the beginning of the evening, and Mr. Wood will give his opening statement first tonight. Again, the candidates will have 2 minutes for those opening statements. Then we will roll into a series of 3 prepared questions that the candidates did receive in advance. We'll most likely ask all 3 of those tonight, and then the audience members will then have the opportunity to submit written questions. We've got paper and pens at the back of the room. If they would like to ask a question of the candidates, really all we ask is all of the questions have to be fair and applicable to both candidates. That Jonathan, that's his primary responsibility tonight, is he will screen those questions, again, to make sure that they are fair and applicable to both candidates, and we'll get to as many of those as we can inside of an hour here tonight. So, gentlemen, any questions before we get started? Okay. With that, again, Mr. Wood, you drew the first number, so you will give your opening statements. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank Blake and the Pittsburgh Sun and the City of Pittsburgh for hosting this. I'd like to thank my family, my friends, and everybody that's been backing me. I'm glad to see them all here tonight. And my name is Carl Wood, so I hope I didn't miss nobody by telling them thank you. Like I say, I got 3 growing children. I got Carla, Christy, and Rich. I'm a husband, a father, and a father-in-law, and a grandfather, and a great-great-grandfather. I have 7 grandchildren: Dalton, Madison, Riley, Reagan, Brody, Denton, Bryce, and I have 2 great-great-granddaughters, Kinley and Maple. My education, I went to College High School, which don't exist anymore. It's tied into the college. I got 2 associate degrees from PSU, one in electrical and one in heating and air. I am a county businessman. My son and I, we run a cow-calf operation for many, many years. I had 2 good related jobs. One was 25 years with P&M Coal Company. One was 20 years with Empire District Electric Company. I am a Catholic faith. Sorry I have to read this, I got so much here. Past board member of Baker Township Fire Department, past board member of Crawford County Planning and Zoning. I was on the restoration committee for Big Bruce Electric Shovel over by Mineral. I volunteered with my wife at Angels Among Us. I was a board member of the Regional Planning Commission of 12 counties. I'm a strong supporter of the Crawford County 4-H. I'm a member of the LEPC of the county for emergency management. I was one of the co-founders of CTEC. That included myself, Blake Benson, Dusty Brown, John Ketterman, and Michael Gray. That's for junior seniors in high school, and I'm real proud of, and St. Mary's Cogan. I'm also proud to be a resident of Crawford County.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood, and I did forget to and apologize. I will give you, both of you, signals when you have 30 seconds left. I'll hold up the yellow card. My apologies for not covering that earlier. When you see the yellow card, you have 30 seconds. When you see red, that you've hit your time. But I also forgot to mention that we'll have closing statements, so feel free, anything that you weren't able to cover in your opening statement, feel free to include it in your closing statement.
I'm sorry I didn't. I thought it was just the,
apologies.
Saw just the opposite.
My apologies. So, Mr. Johnson, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Sure. So, hi, my name is Jeremy Johnson. I currently serve as the District 3 Crawford County Commissioner, which I've done for the last 4 years. Before that, I served on the Pittsburgh City Commission also for 4 years. So I'm approaching a decade in public service. And so I am from Pittsburgh, was born and raised here, now raising a family here. And so a lot of the reason my drive for running for public office has been to serve, to give back to this community that has raised me, that has given me more things than I can name, certainly in 2 minutes, and a desire to help the community, not just for the time that I'm overseeing it for 4 years, but into the future, to help it pose better, to be better poised to face the issues that are yet to come. And especially now, having a family and recognizing all of the ways that a community helps to shape both individuals and the families residing in it, it has become really clear to me the importance of helping to plan for that, to work on not just the individual stuff of this road or this intersection or this one particular issue, but to prepare for what we have coming on down the line, right? So it's not just us and the families that we know that we're trying to make the county better for, but trying to make it so that people want to move here, that children want to stay here after they grow up and they have a choice of where it is that they're going to be living, where they're going to have families, where they're going to put down their roots. Not just right now, but again, into the future, which means thinking about long-term problems and thinking about them in ways that are not always evident, right? Because it can be easy to get sucked into the day-to-day, right? The potholes and the weeds and the fence viewings, right? But my goal in serving and hoping to continue to serve is to think about those bigger things.
Okay, thank you both. As I mentioned, we will now go into 3 prepared questions that the candidates received in advance. And Mr. Johnson, you will answer the first prepared question first. And the question is this: in your opinion, what should the county's top 3 priorities be for the next 3 years? What should be the county's top 3 priorities for the next 3 years? You have 2 minutes.
Okay. So the first one I would say is, like I mentioned in my opening statement, long-term planning and collaboration. So a good example of this, right now, there is a bunch of money available at the federal level to address things like transportation and infrastructure at a historic level, right? The kind of stuff that doesn't come along more than once in a generation. But we know that in order to capture that and to benefit the communities that we serve, we have to be planning and working together. Again, we can't simply be focusing on individual issues of, oh, well, we have this road that needs fixed. We need to be talking to other cities and counties, frankly, in the region to talk about what are the issues that are biggest, that are impeding our growth, that are keeping us from fully developing, and trying to focus on those and work together to develop a plan that's going to be mutually beneficial, that then is going to get us that funding that we can address those issues. And the second one, I think, is mental health. So mental health in Kansas is currently undergoing a radical transformation, which hopefully at the end of it will mean the provision of services at a level that has not existed up until now, which is visible currently if you talk with law enforcement or the sheriff's office, as we've heard many times, that people who need mental health services are not getting them, and so they end up in the legal systems, they end up in our jails, they end up dealing with law enforcement, sucking up their time and energy and resources, when really they need to be getting those services for mental health. So hopefully, in focusing on those opportunities, we'll be able to reshape what that looks like. And then I think the third one will be workforce development, right? Both attracting people to move here by growing housing, jobs, childcare, that kind of thing, but also encouraging and making it easy for our kids to continue to stay here after they graduate from high school and in college, to make sure that all of the things that they bring to the community are going to enrich our community and not somebody else's.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Wood.
My first one is lowering property tax. The state made the assessed value of 12% all of our property went up 12%. So in that case, then the mill levy should have went down. With all the new construction that's going on, that will be in the 2023 budget, I'm talking about FedEx. I'm talking about Evergy with that new switchgear out there. I'm talking about the project in the North Industrial Park. So with all these coming on, they should be on the books in 2023. You should see the mill levy drop like a rock. But so far, it really hasn't dropped, and it should have dropped more this year than what it was. I've seen the figures, and I think there was a lot of wriggle room that could have made it a lot easier to drop the mill levy more than what it was dropped. My number two is workforce. We have people out there that need jobs. Not need jobs, but need people to fill these jobs, and we don't have it. I recommend the CTEC, like I said earlier, I was one of the founders of it. They should be encouraged to go to CTEC, learn a trade. I believe there's 9 different trades out there, or not. Go to a trade school, learn a trade, and to see what's going on and have some kind of initiative, put some policy in place so they will join the workforce. The third one is the alcohol drug treatment plan that the county in 2016 put into effect to give $1 million to. They put aside a half a mil. A half mil right now makes $300,000 a year, roughly. Right now, they got $900,000, and they're going to move forward on this right after the first of the year. There's going to be 7 beds for people that don't take up jails or take up the hospital. It's going to be a 35-bed capacity.
Okay, thank you both. Our second prepared question will be answered first by you, Mr. Wood, and the question is this. This race is unique as both of you have previously served on the county commission. What did you learn from that experience, and what would you say is your proudest achievement as a county commissioner? 2 minutes.
I'd like to have more than one, please. First of all, listen to the people. The people, if you listen to them, they can solve 90% of the problem or tell you what really to do to fix the problem there is. Second of all, I learned not to get a bond. When I went in there, they had a $10 million bond. Some years they couldn't even pay the principal, they just pay the bond, which was $100,000 a year just for the interest. So a bond to me is no go. It was 10 years, we finally got it paid off. Another thing, when I left there, the county was less than $80,000 in debt. Now they're, which is not bad, $400,000 to $500,000 in debt right now. Some of the achievements I made, like I said earlier, paid off the $10 million bond, got CTEC going, which the county put in $375,000 over a period of 3 years. Pittsburgh put in $300,000. Rita Bicknell's Foundation gave $1 million to get this started, that was our boost to go, as well as you would know. When this casino come in, they pledged $400,000 a year for 10 years to train juniors and seniors in high school, and there's some adults going out there now. Also, we redecorated the the courthouse. We put all new lighting in. We put a new elevator in because we had one claim of a work comp case. It was over $100,000. But we dug up the money and got it taken care of. And learn to pay for large items, pay cash for it. Don't go out with these lease purchases because then you're going to pay interest, and that's taxpayers' money. And one other thing I was real glad of, the Oak Grove up there, where everybody could go, I think it was the first Saturday of the month. Well, I was getting complaints, there's a lot of lines there. So now you can go to Oak Grove once a month, anytime you want to go, when they're open.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Johnson, 2 minutes.
Okay. So I would say the lesson that I've taken away that I feel like is probably most important is, especially in local politics, and especially when you have a 3-person council or commission, all politics are personal. That everything that you're doing, right, it doesn't matter what the issue is or what it is that you're focusing on. If you cannot get along with the other 2 people sitting around you at the table, you're not getting anything accomplished, right? And so I have learned that in approaching any subject, whether it's some of the ones I'm about to talk about or others, it is important to have rapport, an ability to work with other people, to reach across the aisle, to hear disparate viewpoints and be able to have a conversation. So as far as accomplishments, I think that the thing that I would point to is the opportunities that we had as a result of the pandemic, which was stressful and lots of difficult decisions to be made, but also came with opportunities for leadership, not least of them the federal funding, some of which I mentioned earlier. And so we got a couple of different times, $7.5 million to invest back in the community, to utilize in whatever ways we saw fit. And with the most recent one, the American Rescue Plan, we identified 3 investment areas. Public health, for obvious reasons, rural water and sewer that have been historically underfunded, and childcare, which is something that we've talked a lot in this community about over the last 10+ years. And so in trying to tackle that, which is something, by the way, that has never been done before, there is no public funding model for childcare that exists either in the state of Kansas or in the United States that I'm aware of, which means inventing the process as you go along. But given we've been talking about it for so long and we know that the issue is important, that there are people who want to work that are not able to because they don't have anywhere to send their kids, I feel that if we're able to take a chunk out of that and begin to address this much larger problem, that's more than I could have hoped to accomplish in my first term.
Okay, thank you both. The third prepared question will be answered first by you, Mr. Johnson, and again, you both will get 2 minutes to answer it. And the question is this: as with the other 2 Crawford County Commission districts, District 3 covers much of Pittsburgh, but also includes a significant portion of rural Crawford County outside the Pittsburgh city limits. How do the needs of District 3 differ inside the Pittsburgh city limits as opposed to outside of them? 2 minutes.
All right. So I guess with a question like this, it can be easy to get into kind of the minutia and the details, right? Of like, oh, well, if you live in the city of Pittsburgh, you're not going to have a fence viewing, right? Or you're not going to dive as much into the property rights issues, right? Because like, newsflash, if you live in the county and not in the city, you can do way more on your property than you're able to within city limits. But I think that the question obscures kind of a thing I'm going to be referring to a bunch this evening, which is that our job as commissioners, it can be easy to get sucked into this pothole, this road, this stop sign, this fence, whatever. But ultimately, the work that we're doing is big picture stuff, right? Things that affect everyone uniformly, right? So again, going back to childcare, it doesn't matter if you live in the city of Pittsburgh or outside of it. If you have children, you need to have a place to take them if you want to work. Similarly, with infrastructure, just because we have cities taking care of some roads and counties taking care of others, if we're not communicating and collaborating and talking to one another about what our priorities are, about the ways that those systems interact with each other, we're going to run into problems, not just for the individuals who live on those roads and drive on them, but for commerce, right? For trucks, they're carrying goods across them to and from places. If you don't have systems that interact well, you're going to run into problems and it's going to decrease the quality of life. And so again, it can be easy to dive into, well, if you live in the city, it's this way, and outside it's not. But I think the more important work here is recognizing, again, the big picture stuff that impacts far more people than the minute individual issues. And those are the ones that I want to be spending my time working on.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wood, 2 minutes.
I don't think there's no difference between the county and Pittsburgh. And the reason why, the county mows the right-of-ways out in the county. The county takes care of all the hard surface road coming into Pittsburgh. But I just don't want to say Pittsburgh. I want to say all the communities in the county. Pittsburgh is in the county. I mean, a lot of people don't think so. I mean, they got certain rules like, you know, for their codes and all that there. Well, the county does too if they enforce them. And I don't believe that they have been enforcing them. So what I'm saying is, you got with the county and the city, we bid asphalt together. You got the paper server, if you're wanted by the law for any reason, that is furnished to the cities, not just the Pittsburgh. You've got the, if you have a medical 911 call, it's dispatched from the county. We got the recycling center that the county and Pittsburgh has together. You've got the big, large item drop-off that the county pays 1 month, the city pays the next month. You got the maintenance of the courthouses that is paid for by the county, but everybody uses that lives in the county, including Pittsburgh. You got the county health department. Everybody uses it. You got the new alcohol and drugs center that the county's paying for, and hopefully, God, everybody will use. You got your taxes, you got your tags, you got the appraisal of your home that is paid for by the county pays for these people for these services. What else do we have here? Oh, and if you notice, Pittsburgh or any of the other communities, if the county needs a piece of equipment, they borrow, they trade each off with each other. One time there was a oil truck that belonged to Pittsburgh, was over at Mulberry spreading oil. And in Pittsburgh, there was a motor grader from the county. So everybody works hand in hand. I'm done.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Okay, we will now move into the portion of tonight's event where audience members have submitted questions. We have a couple, but would encourage any audience member that would like to write their question down on the pad in the back of the room, submit that to John here, and if it's a question that's applicable to both candidates and fair, then we will try our best to ask that tonight. So, Mr. Wood, you get the first question from the audience tonight, and you both have 2 minutes to answer these questions. The question is this: what would you see as the advantages or disadvantages, if you'd rather focus on that, of going to a county manager form of government?
For what?
A county manager form of government.
Oh.
What would you see? I'll read it one more time.
Oh, that's fine. I understand.
What do you see as the advantages or disadvantages of going to a county manager form of government? 2 minutes.
I'm going to give you all disadvantages. First of all, if you hired a county manager, what would the county commissioners do besides go out there and get the complaints? You give it to the county manager. How do you know? If you're on the wrong side of them, you're not going to get nothing done. This way here, you have your district to take care of, and if people call, they won't call him, they'll call you, and they expect you to get it fixed, whether it's a tall tree that's been down in the road, or, hey, a stop sign's knocked down, or my taxes are too high, or the sheriff department didn't come out here at a certain time. You take care of the problem. You work for the people. The people don't work for you, and I'm almost sure a county manager would. I am 110% against a county manager.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Okay. Mr. Johnson, you also have 2 minutes.
Okay. So, as Carl said, with the county manager, there is certainly a more hands-off approach that county commissioners would have, as is the case with the city and a lot of places elsewhere. And across the state, honestly, it seems like there's a divided opinion on what the right thing is for each community. And I don't know that there is a right answer of like it 100% has to be this or it has to be this. I have seen that certainly it is easier to get involved in the meat and potatoes of issues, right? When you're doing the hands-on stuff. Like when, with the city, like I said, as I served on, you have the manager that's like running stuff and you're acting as backup and you follow their lead and you're largely overseeing their position. With the county, you're the one doing all of the stuff, well, you and the other two people, right? Which, I mean, certainly is closer to the people, right? That you have your constituents, you're the one, you answer directly to them. I think that there are disadvantages to not having that, that it makes it difficult to manage staff when you have a lot of people that work for you, who answer to multiple bosses. That makes it sometimes difficult to navigate that. So there are, I think, definitely advantages there, but I don't know that there's a right answer of like, oh, it absolutely should be this one thing or the other. I mean, I've only ever done it without it, and it's worked okay. I think we still get things done. We're able to accomplish some big things. So thankfully the question did not ask what I would do, because I honestly don't know how I would answer that. But I think that there are definitely pros and cons to going either way.
Okay, thank you both. And our next question from the audience really dives a little bit deeper into something you just mentioned, Mr. Johnson. The question is, what type of supervisory role should the county commissioners have over their departments? What type of supervisory role should the county commissioners have over their departments? 2 minutes.
That's an interesting question. So, I mean, the role that we do have is to oversee them and provide feedback. And it really depends on the department, right? So like so you have your departments run by other elected officials, right? The clerk's office, the register of deeds, the sheriff, that oversee all of the operations there. Then you have other departments like the appraiser's office, the ambulance service, the road and bridge, that answer directly to the commissioners. And so because a lot of those roles require a skill set that the commission, like speaking for myself, frankly doesn't have, right? Like I could not be an emergency manager. I could not run an ambulance department. I don't have the ability to do those things. And so the role there then is to oversee, provide feedback, provide guidance. And again, the things that I've been talking about, providing big picture perspective on, are these things fulfilling the goals that we have? Are they providing the services that we set out to provide as a county? And if not, what are the things that we can do to shift course or correct them? And so, I mean, in that regard, I mean, I think it's a fitting one, right? That I don't need to be able to do that job and tell someone specifically, these are the minute details of how you need to go about it. It's the reason that we hire professionals who run the health department, who run the ambulance service, who run the appraiser's office, who have the specific knowledge that are able to do these things that we as commissioners are not, right? That often don't have the background in them. That we provide guidance to them, but ultimately they're the ones that we entrust to take care of this, and we provide the guidance and supervision to help them accomplish that task.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wood, 2 minutes.
I feel, I'm not being conceited or big-headed, the county commissioners runs this county. You was voted to run the county, whether it's digging ditches, supervising the EMS on what they spend, the appraisers, the county treasurer, which takes care of the money, the elected officials, which is, I think, 3 of them or 4 of them, but they always come to see if they need to spend money or they want your blessings, you might as well say, if they can do something, and most of the time you sit there and work it out. So my answer is the county commissioners run the county. Whether it's taking care of a complaint from somebody, you get them in the right direction. One story I'm going to tell you, a lady had a daughter that was an invalid. She died, and a year later she could not get the death certificate. She had the death certificate the next day. Made one phone call, but everybody put her off about it. Now, how bad can that be? So you tell people what you want done. If you don't do it, hey, we'll talk to you later. So what I'm saying is you're the man with the big stick. And that's just how I feel about it.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, our next question's a pretty simple one, and you obviously can take it any direction you would like, and Mr. Wood, you'll get this question first. Why should the citizens of District 3 vote for you?
Why should they vote for me?
2 minutes.
You know, I don't know what people know or not, but we called him in the coal mines a circuit breaker. That's a person that knows a little bit about everything. And if you don't, the breaker pops like it's in your house. I know a little bit about everything. I've lived here my whole life. I know how people are. I know how to manage money. I worked out in the field knowing what's going on. And like I say, business has it. And like I say, I know everybody around here. And I think I am a 24/7 county commissioner. I work for the people. The people don't work for me. And they know that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Mr. Johnson, 2 minutes.
I think that for me, as I talked about in my opening statement, my intention in being in this office is to serve both individual constituents and the greater good of Crawford County, right? For every person that lives here, to improve things and leave them better than I found them. And again, an ability and willingness to think about bigger issues that oftentimes go unaddressed because they are bigger, right? Again, in being able to chip away at something like childcare, something I'm going to talk about a lot, right? Because I feel very strongly and very proud about this. An issue that has been talked about for more than a decade here, in which essentially next to no strides have been made on, right? That there's been discussion about childcare. What do we do, right? But we had an opportunity to act on this, to do something, and honestly, to take leadership, right? To chip away at something that we've talked about for forever, but has had no progress. And in starting that conversation, because we know, right, I think we all recognize that we're not going to fix childcare with the $2.2 million that we're going to sink into it, right? But if we can begin to lay the foundation for a longer-term solution, if we can begin to address the problem, again, something that hasn't happened up to this point, which means we're inventing it as we go along, which means working with community members. It means working with the people that are providing childcare. It means working with people like Greenbush who help us think about the process and think about the outcomes and develop the way that we're going to approach it. If we can begin to do those things, that is how we address the long-term issues, which again, is what I'm here for. This is my bread and butter. I love thinking about those kinds of things that we know are issues that cause all kinds of problems for us and begin to address those in a way that's going to be meaningful, not just for the people here now, but for people into the future in Crawford County.
Okay, thank you both. Next question from the audience is related to emergency preparedness. Can you tell the residents of District 3 what your emergency preparedness plan would be? Can you tell the residents of District 3 what your emergency preparedness plan would be? Mr. Johnson, you will go first.
Okay, so as with pretty much every answer that I've given so far, having in place good lines of communication is the absolute most important aspect of this and pretty much anything else, right? When you are acting in local government, you are never in a silo, right? You're never acting simply on your own. It's not like, oh, the county's going to act separately and then there's the city over here that's a separate entity. Everything that you do interfaces. Every decision that you make, every step that you take is intertwined with the actions of other entities around you. And so, as I think the rather large emergency that we are on the tail side of, right, with COVID, showed us, it is absolutely imperative that you're talking with other organizations, that you have everyone at the table in order to make the best decisions. Because you can have the best plan in place, but if you do not have access to people who have information that you do not have, if you don't have open lines of communication with them where you're able to talk with them openly and regularly about all kinds of different issues, when it comes time to implement the plan, you're going to fall on your face, right? So the most important thing, I think, for me is doing exactly that, being a connector between the county and all of these different entities, whether it's the city, whether it's our hospitals, whether it's our schools, like anyone in the community, right? Those are the people that we need to be talking to have at the table, so as we're making decisions, they're informed by as many people as we can get in the room as possible, that it's going to allow us to make the best decision possible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wood, 2 minutes.
Yes, this plan's already in place. The way I hear it, they hadn't had maybe 2 meetings in the last 4 years that I've been absent. It's called LEPC. We met once a month at the hospital. The next month, we met at the Girard Hospital. The next month, we met at the Drail. The people involved in this is law enforcement from every community in the county, the fire departments. Good example, the people out at the bacon plant, they had a person there because they got pneumonia. We drilled and we drilled. Each month, we talked about if we had a disaster, what would we do? A good example is one time, a guy brought up, what happened if we had some fatalities, 15 or 20? Hope to God we'd never have. What would you do with them? Well, we come up that we was going to use a refrigerated box. A semi to put them in until they happen there. So it's in place, but it's not being enforced, and no one wants to regroup it again. And I was the one that got it going again when my term in office there. And the other thing we talk about a fatality, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a storm come through, a tornado, the south part of town, went through our neighborhood, went east, ended up over there on State Line. I didn't see a county commissioner out there at all. I seen 2 policemen out there try to direct the traffic so we can get through. A county commissioner would be there on the spot because I was at 3 different ones in my term of office before, and we directed traffic. We had a plan to go. There's no plan now. I hope we don't get another disaster of any kind because we're going to be sunk in the mud.
Okay, thank you both. Well, gentlemen, we will now transition into our closing statements for the evening. Mr. Wood, since you gave your opening statement first, Mr. Johnson, you'll give your closing statement first, and you both have 2 minutes.
Okay. So as I've said over and over this evening, I got into public service, one, primarily to serve the community and the people that live here, right? I've spent my entire life in this community. It has given me an innumerable benefits that I'm incredibly thankful for. And I feel it to be my duty then, as a recipient of those things, to turn around and try and give the favor back in the form of serving in this role, which is what it is service, right? To try to, as I've talked about many times, think about not just the issues that are facing us right here at this very moment for the next 4 years, but on down the road for the next 10, 20, 50 years, right? To plan for those things, to think about where are we going as a community? Where do we want to go as a community? And what can we be doing now to lay the foundation to be better prepared to get there, to solve those problems that aren't quite here yet, right? Or conversely, the big ones that we've had with us, like childcare shortages, like worker shortages, like a shortage of housing that we've had for an incredibly long time, and begin to think about those things and approach those things collaboratively with all of our community partners, with cities, with the county, with other counties, to begin to chip away at those things so that when my term is done and into the future, I can say that I left things better than I found them, right? That it benefits not just me and my family and my friends, but also the other people that live here and the people who will live here in the future, right? Because that is the purpose of this office, is to leave it better than you found it, to be prepared for the future and the problems that are yet to come, so that everybody who lives here now and in the future can continue to enjoy what I've gotten out of living in Crawford County.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Wood, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Okay. As a longtime resident of Crawford County, I am pro Crawford County. I am proud of my accomplishments that I've made. Unlike my opponent, I have a list of accomplishments that promotes Crawford County. As a county commissioner, I will answer and return all the calls. I am a 24/7 county commissioner. I will not falsely accuse any county department of misusing of county money. I am pro-county commissioner, and I want it to succeed. Appreciate your vote on November the 8th.
Okay, I hope our audience members will give our candidates a big round of applause, please. And certainly we do, as you just heard, we encourage everybody to mark Tuesday, November 8th on their calendars. That is Election Day. Get out and vote. Thank you again to the City of Pittsburgh for allowing us to have this event here this evening. Thank you to John Riley and the Morning Sun. And with that, we'll say have a great evening.